Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is September the 20th of 2023, and I am Nick, and this is Quinn, and this is Weekly Manga Recap, where we will recap the manga of the weekly basis, and also the ones that aren't quite weekly but are close enough to it for it to qualify.
And also multiple series that are weekly, but are pretty irregular in that weekliness.
Some of them aren't even like at once a month. Some of them are like once every 2 months at this point.
Yeah, you never know. But that's why we defy all expectations, even the ones set up by the very name of this show, to provide you with the best podcast possible. All right, I have nothing else to give, guys. I think that's it.
Is that our mission statement? Have we been aiming for quality this whole time?
I didn't say what kind of quality.
Okay.
It could be anything.
All right, pressure's back off. All right.
Nick, a few dignitaries, they do watch this, and it is actually vital to their mission success that we perform a quality show.
Just some foreign affairs officials out there.
Yeah.
Yes, we will declare war if the two losers with their manga podcast are not up to snuff.
James Bond is like, listen, Blowfield, before you kill me, turn on Weekly Manga Recap. If they don't entertain you, then you can launch the missiles.
Oh well, I do love a good random fart joke, so that is sufficient for me, Mr. Bond.
Comes right in. I'm just like,
oh, very well, Mr. Bond. I will spare your miserable countries.
You win this time, Mr. Bond.
Oh boy, I desperately hope that
none of this is true. Yeah, I really hope James Bond isn't relying on our podcast to protect world peace.
First off, what an amazing super spy James Bond is. The most secret of all secret agents, and there are 25 movies about him. Like, that's just incredible. Secondly, there are just some weird chapters this week that I don't really know if I want to talk about them. Just like full stop. But I think that we should just roll into it. We do start and end on positive notes, so I can get through this. I can do it. Yeah. So, are you ready, Quinn?
Yeah.
Are you ready to begin this manga talkie time with
now,
a naked teenage girl?
I was going to say, Nick, you say we start on a high note, but I'm looking at the first page we'll be discussing, and yes, there is a naked teenager on it. So I'm not sure if saying we start completely on a high note is the right thing to say.
Admittedly, because I do always have, the first chapter open that we're going to talk about before we delve into the discussion. And so for the last several minutes where we've been talking, I occasionally just looked at it, was like, why is she naked? Why didn't she have a special suit made so that she could have clothes? She's got to be cold at the very least.
It's so astonishing. It's visible right there that her hair is also affected by her powers. You couldn't just make a costume out of her hair. It's just very easy to work around this.
We kick off My Hero Academia chapter 400. So Good job, Horikoshi. You made it to the mountaintop, chapter 400. And now continue as you mean to go on. Naked girl. All right. Well, this series is about heroism and rising to the occasion and legacies and what means to be a good or bad person. Naked teenage girl. So, yep. What a great 400 chapters it's been.
Now, Nick, we say this is like the fourth most important thing Hagakure has ever done in this series. So
it is.
We had to give it some measure of attention.
not the taking down this villain, but the aftermath of her taking down the villain is the fourth most important thing that she's ever done. It's a very short list. She last chapter reflected Aoyama's naval beam stuff, took out the villain who was summoned a bunch of evil flowers that were feeding off of people. Now she realizes that doing so has somehow messed up her quirk, so she is temporarily visible, and is like, "No, I'm naked. Don't look." I mean, yes, this is, yeah. Just wear clothes made of your hair, please. So,
or anything. I need to clarify. You could just also say, like, we found a special material. It's called Mysterium, and if we use it, it'll whatever. I don't need every good reason for it. I just want a reason.
We just need to go to this faraway planet and take over these blue cat people and take it from them. And then we'll have as many invisible girl clothes as we need.
Yep.
So let's do that. Hagakure realizes that even when she's reflected his beam before, this hasn't happened to her. So she's like, "Oh, Aoyama, your quirk evolved. Hooray." So he says, "Okay."
Very happy, Nick.
Well, he seems a little glum, and we find out why very shortly afterwards, because he directs her saying that they need to burn away all the plants that are growing from the heroes' bodies, because even with the villain being taken out, they are still growing. So he's going to burn away their roots with Hagakure's help to actually guide his laser. And she says, "Well, is your tummy up for it?" Because, of course, he gets the stomach aches very easily when he uses power. And he says, "This day will be my last as a student of UA, so yes, whatever it may take."
Aww.
So, basically calling his own retirement, which, given what he's been through, is not all that surprising.
Yeah.
We'll see if it sticks, I guess. But again, Ayama's, I don't know, number 12, so on that list of students, so, but hey, the main core of this chapter is getting it back into the fight between All Might and All for One. He used a laser beam modeled after Aoyama's power to satellite laser cannon All for One, and he just keeps it going. And he also employs the real force that's going to make a difference: earphone jack power. That's gonna do it.
He was saving it, Nick. He needed a way for, like, he's like, only when I'm on my last rope do I pull out the true trump card of trump cards.
Now you might think, oh well, it's just kind of like this action's just kind of like squeezed into a couple of small panels with no. That's the secret, is that you're not seeing it coming when he uses the ace ability. So yes.
A lot of AMVs are going to be made about this exact moment.
Just a very slow loop.
They're picking a lot of real short songs.
So he is really beaten the fuck up because he's taking a lot of damage, and he's just a human guy wearing armor right now. All for One, even while being buffeted by these various energy blasts, is still lashing out with weird tendrils and things. So All Might keeps on using more of his students' quirks. He has his armor kind of split off from him in a mimicry of Yaoyorozu's power, and it gets all sticky, like with Mineta's. We don't really see exactly what they do. There's a lot of just, like, action just caved in here. It looks like he does use them to pin All for One's hands down to the ground, I think. But he fully admits to himself, like, look, this guy needs to just die and fade away because I am running on adrenaline right now. He says the euphoria is overriding the pain, which makes sense. He has many broken bones at this point. We cut to a kid in some far-off nation watching the battle because, of course, it's still being live-streamed. And the kid says, "Who's that skinny guy in black?" There's like a grandparent in the corner who says, "I don't know." All right, thanks.
This is such an interesting scene to me because, like, yeah, one, this grandma has very little interest in what's going on. She's just like, yeah, I don't really know these people. And, the kid's like, well, what happens if he wins or loses? And the grandma's like,
I don't know.
It's not our town. I don't care. Well, it's like, I mean, one, I feel like if this was happening, you'd care a smidgen, a little bit, because this is pretty wild what's happening.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, a guy who could grow his arm real big went up against a hero who could shoot lasers out of his eyes. Like, there's stuff going on here that's destroying cities and, like, entire parts of the nation. So, like, some level of you should care. But also just, like, why are you watching it then? If you're just like, who cares?
The kid seems to still be into it, though. He is gripping his hands, so that shows that he is invested. Yes.
This is great, though. Like, the actual scene itself is great, just to show, like, All Might, even at this point, still inspiring kids, still driving them to hope for truth and justice.
Eventually, the satellite laser cannon overloads and explodes. So, no more giant laser holding down All for One, who has reverted to the point where he looks like he has the body of a child at this point, although he's glowing with power.
He's in his Kid Buu era, as they say.
So All for One basically says, tools, like I said, tools can't surpass their own limits. That's right. I'm still just as boring as before. He goes to attack All Might and then suddenly freezes in the middle of like some sort of tendril growing out of his back. And he is shocked. Is like, I can't move. And who should have been showing up in the crucial moment, but perched on, I don't know, one of the random flying platforms, or maybe he just stole a goblin glider at some point. I'm not sure which.
I really like the idea that Stain has always just had a hoverboard. He's just never talked about it up until now.
I am the grim and gritty person who needs to get in close to carve you up with my blades, so I'm going to fly around on this hovercraft. He has managed to grab a scrap of shrapnel that has some of All for One's blood on it, and he has licked it up to paralyze him. And he calls down to All Might to conquer him! And that's where we close off our chapter.
Yeah,
Stain with the assist.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Stain's returned. There's like a level of like, I wish this had happened a little bit sooner. Kind of like what, like when a company like has like primed you up for like the hero's big return in wrestling. Like the face is going to eventually do something really cool, but they take a little too long pulling the trigger on it. So I think that's, a little like, I wish this happened like maybe like a couple months ago or something like that. But this is such a cool moment though of like this team up. I don't know. I think what I really come down to with this is like a really cool fight. And there's like a part of me that's like, is this like the fight of the year? Because it's like All Might is throwing everything into this. And there is like on paper something so cool about this guy who's lost his quirk, but he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna ball out with gadgets. And not only that, my gadgets are themed thematically to all the kids that we've spent this series reading, and I'm just gonna give everything into it, and I'm gonna smile the whole time, because even if I don't have powers, I'm still gonna inspire kids. It just is a shame that All for One is such a boring villain. Like, that's really what it comes down to, is like, this is just missing like the right antagonist to like make this a really truly special encounter.
Even if we just had a note of, as All for One is regressing in age, like maybe if he showed some sign that his personality were changing even slightly, but he's just the same guy the whole time. It doesn't matter, and all of it is just like, bah ha ha, I'm the ultimate blah blah blah. My plans, I have plans on top of plans on top of plans, which are definitely being demonstrated in this moment. Like, it is annoying that such a great performance, I guess you could call it, is wasted on this kind of opponent. But we move on It's time to talk about some Undead Unluck.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Undead Unluck, number 175. I assume this is RIP and not RIP. Unfortunately, I never picked up on that connection between them before. So I'm assuming without punctuation, I'm supposed to read this as RIP. Also,
RIP.
The carroting around this, I can't tell if any letters are like supposed to be on like lowercase or not. It's very confusing. Anyway, Rip has just been confronted with Fuko and Latla, who are like, UMA sick is the cause. You have to use your underpair to beat it. And they have the Blade Runner legs. So like, you have to put these on. It's the only way. And Rip's like, I had to go. I had to save people. I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but I had no time for this shit. And he heads off. He grabs Layla, and they head into surgery. And immediately, he does note that, look, if they die, it's all over, but like, I'll hear you out after I've fixed everyone. My job is to be a doctor. I have to save people. So that's my number one priority. But as soon as they get in there, all the nurses are like, things are going really bad. We don't have like the right supplies. What are we going to do? And Rip immediately starts working. One of his nurses is like, wait, you aren't marking the area? What are you doing? You're being really rash. And he's like, nope, I got this. And he is working so incredibly fast that no matter how many assistants he has, they can't really keep up with just how fast he's working. He manages to handle this entire surgery in about 10 minutes.
I should note, in most situations, what Rip is doing is bad.
Yes, very, very bad.
This is not something that should, as a doctor, be celebrated.
Surgery is not one of those times and places you need to go fast in to look cool.
There are so many cases, like, the reason why there are all these things of, like, oh, you have to mark off the air and stuff, is so that surgeons don't make stupid mistakes, which happen incredibly frequently without the checks and balances. Literally, the act of writing on someone's body in permanent marker, this is the part that we're amputating, has saved many people from having the wrong limb amputated. Because people make stupid mistakes like that, and going quickly instead of actually taking the time to have those, systems in place would always be bad, except in weird magic, everyone is sick and gonna die in 2 minutes land.
Now, Nick, it's worth noting this is Rip, who is the best doctor to ever live and cares more about his patients than any doctor who's ever been around before. Right. So it makes sense for him.
And Rip performing surgery on someone has never caused them to die. That's part of his backstory.
So he has finished surgery, but he notes, he's like, this didn't fix her. This just bought her some time. So I don't really know. Like, this seems like the real surgery is kind of risky. And Layla just says, Rip, help the others. I'll be fine. And we cut over to two assistants who are like, didn't you sedate her? And the other one's like, yeah, it's fine. It's dramatic tension time. It's okay that she's allowed to speak during this part.
Or maybe her ability is awakening. Yeah. I don't know.
I wonder.
Unconscious.
It is like a moment of the manga just being like, I don't know, man. She just talks. Like she did it. She loves him so much. So she's basically pleads to him like, hey, Rip, you're a good doctor, but when you're here, you're not my lover. You're not, the person who I want to spend my life with. You are everyone's hero. So you need to help everybody. And Rip's like, got it. He like kind of snaps him out of it, and he realizes he has to help everybody. So he's like, all right, who needs my help next? And they go over to little girl Emily, who we saw, I think it was last chapter, maybe 2 chapters ago. I can't remember how long we've been in this hospital. Yeah, she's crying. Rip comes in. He's like, hey, how you doing? Still kicking? And she's sobbing. She's like, I'm so sorry. I haven't been able to eat food, but I still took your candy. And she has a little lollipop with her. And she's like, I was a bad girl, so God got angry and he's gonna punish me. There's a note of somebody like, prep the anesthesia. We're not gonna fuck it up this time. But Rip kind of pats her on the head assuringly, and he's like, listen up, Emily. There are no bad children in this hospital. all of you are trying your best with a very difficult challenge that has been given to you. Which is why if there's a god who will make such good kids suffer, I'll fillet that jerk up good. Which is such cool line.
This Rip is the coolest motherfucker.
It's a weird line to say to a child because it almost sounds like he is aware that there is a god out there that he's going to kill. But it is such a great line of just like, I'm going to kill the god that made all these sick kids suffer. I'm going to fucking eviscerate him.
It's such a great thing, though, that there are no bad children in this hospital.
He's very, very sweet. So Emily's going to sleep, and Rip's like, let's start the surgery. Cut over to Latla and Fuko. Latla is trying to lead Fuko to where the UMAs are, but as it's happening, she like tries to get some information. She's like, this is all a UMA's doing? And Fuko's like, probably actually juniors. It's children, more or less. It's spreading the sickness to people to turn them into nutrients. And once enough of that happens, it won't be attacking hospitals. It'll be attacking like whole countries. Like, it's really bad. We have to handle it here. And Latla's like, I don't know if you should be using my fortune telling to seek it out. Like, this seems like a really important thing. And they enter a room. And the room's completely empty. And I was like, see, there's nothing there. You should have just relied. And Fuko's like, no, it's there. Don't worry. She tells Latla to, like, back up. And then she, like, Dragon Balls. Like, shoo! Like, she shoots out so she can kick one of the children in the face and just rip it in half. And basically the UMA sick kids just look like little mouth germs, basically, that kind of float in the air.
Yeah, they're the, what is it, the Lavaliers?
Yes! Oh, the Langoliers! Holy
Langoliers.
Shit. They do look a lot like Langoliers. Damn, I didn't know anyone else knew the Langoliers reference.
Lavalier's a microphone.
They can be dangerous, too. If you put mounts on them, it's terrifying.
Ruin all your takes. Just
yeah, like, please. We only have so much daylight left. We see, though, that the one Fuko cuts in half actually splits then into two different ones. They're laughing like, ah! And they're flying around. And Fuko's like, shit, I don't have a way to, like, just take them out all at once. We'll have to capture them one-on-one. But that doesn't really solve the problem. To fix all these people, she knows what she needs to do. She doesn't say it right here because we cut away. But she knows that the answer is Rip. We cut over to a bunch of doctors who are looking at all these patients who have gotten out of surgery and are like, holy shit, he actually did it. Like everyone's stable. Like, I didn't think this pretty boy actually had it in him. I always thought that this was a guy who had risen up the ranks because of his good looks and everything like that. But he actually is as good as he is. I was convinced the media nickname they gave him was, just something they slapped on him. But it was accurate after all. The Prince de Péchon. Huh? The Prince of
and he only performed one unnecessary appendectomy.
Yeah. Hey, nobody bats 100.
Nobody needs that.
We cut over to Rip, who is very frustrated. He's sitting in a hallway. He's thinking about Layla's words to him, and he's just thinking, I haven't actually saved anyone, though. All I've done is kept them alive a little bit longer. I don't know what's going on, and if these symptoms will reoccur, everyone could, and he's so frustrated, and that's when Fuko shows up and just says, hey, the next wave's going to be here soon, and she's holding out a bag that has several of the UMA-6 in it, and she's like, these juniors... She comes in a little heavy. She's like, these are the juniors. They're going to give power to the mother sick.
These are the magic monsters that are attacking everyone.
But she knows, she's like, look, if we don't stop this now, it's going to be exponentially worse. And that's when Rip is like, oh, you're the girlfriend this morning. What are these monsters? And she's like, look, you have to use your unrepairability against the cause of this harm, UMA sick. You can eradicate it. But she starts to continue. If you take up this power, though, your time as a doctor will be over. And she doesn't get to finish that. Rip grabs her by the shirt and is like, so there is a way to save everybody. Then you have to tell me. Because nothing in this world takes precedence over life. Nothing. And that's where we end the chapter.
Also a really cool moment. Rip gets two very, very cool moments in this. This isn't like as great as the one where he tells the kid, like, no, you're all good children and I will punch God if he's done this to you. But just the absolute lack of hesitance when Fuko's trying to warn him, like, look, if you do this, you can't be a doctor. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He realized everyone's lives are in danger and he can save them, so he's going to take it. It doesn't matter what the cost is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Comes off very good. Rip's looking cool. Let's see what happens here.
Blue box.
Blue box.
It's chapter 117. A big step. Taiki facing off against Mochizuki of Sajikawa's team, the same team that Yusa belongs to. And Taiki has the advantage in their match. And as we kick off the chapter, Mochizuki realizes, like, oh, I'm losing. And I'm losing to this guy. This guy who has not, like, had any amazing results so far. He's just some no-name athlete. And Sajikawa's got to win. I've got to win for Sajikawa. And he thinks about how, Yusa was told, like, hey, you're going to play abroad so that you can develop and everything. And he brought up, like, wasn't that going to be when the first-year tournament's happening? And his coach told him, like, look, that doesn't matter. This trip is more important. Just
it's small potatoes, kid. I don't know what to tell you.
And Yusa just says, all right. This just goes with it. Very Yusa fashion.
Fair enough.
I remember, can you imagine, like, if Ayame is ever going to get a chance to talk to Yusa? It's just going to be, I've had a crush on you this whole time. Okay.
Noted.
So do you want to go out? I mean, I could, I guess. I really won't. I really don't care either way. Will this interfere in me playing badminton? I don't care.
Yeah.
But
will there be badminton on this date?
I mean, I guess Are you an adequate opponent? I'm a manager for my team. I've barely
never played it in my life.
Maybe it's important for me to beat scrubs like you as part of my development.
Maybe I should be mollywopping newbies. That's the best way for me to advance my skills forward. Thank you for a wonderful date.
So do you want to, like, I don't know, make out, or is this, like, that sounds irrelevant to being a good badminton player, honestly. So anyway, so while the coach was saying that to Yusa, that this tournament doesn't matter in comparison to going on this overseas training trip, Mochizuki overheard that. And now in the present, he thinks to himself, if I can't win at a tournament that doesn't matter, then how's that affect my position on this team? Which, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if this is like a given of like, oh, our team's going to dominate, then you fuck that up, then that's pressure you weren't really thinking about up until now. And of course, as they go along through the match and Taiki continues to win it, everyone's like, oh man, look at that guy. That kid's from AMA, isn't it? And I believe that this was a member of the team that Taiki had beaten before, but it's been a long time. I can't really remember.
He was in, I think, last chapter. He was one of the first people Taiki fought. He had fought him previously, but he showed up just recently as well. Taiki had beat him in a match.
Oh, okay. And so he's analyzing Taiki's abilities, and he realizes that, he always kind of gave this impression that when the going got tough, you would just barely hang on. But now he's the one running the game, so he's in control of things. And as Taiki continues playing against Mochizuki continues to get pressed more and more. Taiki realizes he's strong, but if he hadn't given up on himself, he could go even further. And we get to match point in Taiki's favor. And Mochizuki thinks to himself, is it possible that he's superhuman like Yusa is? But then he looks in Taiki's eyes as he's getting ready to smash the game-winning point, and he realizes, no, he's not. he doesn't complete the thought, but he realizes Taiki's not just some incredibly talented guy like Yusa is. His strength comes from working hard and not giving up on himself. And so Taiki wins the match in what looks like straight sets. And so everyone's like, oh, shit, Sajikawa lost. I guess that Inamata guy is strong, huh? Damn. And they shake hands after the match. We cut over to where Yusa and his other teammates who have gone along for the trip are just kind of hanging out. And they say, oh, yeah, apparently Mochizuki lost in the semifinals. So what the hell is he doing? Who did he lose to? Inamata from Ame. Like, oh, yeah, Haryu's partner. And one of them says, Mochizuki's got a self-effacing tendency. If he'd just own it, he'd be stronger. So this isn't like a thing that just Taiki has picked up on. Of course, all the people around are like, if you would just give a shit and stop acting like there's nothing I can do.
If he'd give a fuck, maybe it would work out.
Right. And meanwhile, Yusa just thinks to himself, I wouldn't have lost.
my man's focused. He has an idea what he wants to talk about and think about, and he's committed to it. His commitment is to beating everybody.
Now that I've had that squash match against the girl with the pigtails, nothing is holding me back.
I feel like I'm refreshed and as limber as I was when I was a child.
We don't even see the finals of the tournament. Just don't find out who Taiki's opponent was at all. Instead, we see the aftermath. Like sun is setting and everyone is saying goodbye. Taiki starts walking home, and Chinatsu catches up with him. And she says, she's like, yeah, I waited here so I could be the first to tell you. Congratulations on winning the first year tournament. Hey, Aww. He did it. And she says, she's like, yeah, when I got your message, I was really happy. People around me probably thought I was crazy, which is very sweet.
What's interesting is like Chinatsu is not the type to like scream or anything like that. So I am curious, what was her level of reaction that people around her were probably like, what's going on with you?
The image of her that we see, which I guess is Taiki imagining this, because it shows up in his panel, is of her glowing. So I guess that's how he thinks of it. Well, she must have like internalized it so much that it started to glow out of her skin. So Taiki kind of goes over like what he did, what he didn't do, because Yusa wasn't there. And she says, yeah, well, that's a big step that you won the tournament. And Taiki says, it's all thanks to your power, Chinatsu. And she kind of does a double take, looks at him, and he's blushing because he just used her name without the senpai tacked on. And she starts blushing too, and the two of them aren't really looking at each other. They're just like, ooh.
Oh my God, you're dating! You nerds!
But Chinatsu says, seeing you work so hard makes me feel empowered. But don't drop the senpai from my hand. Neither of us can handle it.
Neither of us can take fucking being remotely intimate at this point in time.
When you call me by my name without saying senpai, it makes me want to grab you by the shirt, throw you on the ground, and run my hand through your hair.
I become a savage. This is a cute chapter. At the end, I guess most of it is a sports match. That's not necessarily cute, but maybe. I will say there's like a slight level of me that was like, I wish this was like. I guess just to say I wish. There was a part of it's like, if this was a full sports manga, I think Mochizuki's motivation and like character development would be really satisfying, told over like several chapters or something like that. Here, you do recognize, you're like, yeah, this is like a secondary sports manga or whatever. So we really kind of have gotten his whole story in like a chapter, and it is satisfying. It is cool. But there is like just a fiend in me that wants. I'm Yusa, except I just want more sports manga, and I can never get enough.
I do really want me some more like Aisho 21 level stuff. I agree, but this was nice to have this kind of snippet of it for these few chapters of just showing how Taiki has gotten stronger, just based purely off of like being dedicated, having a goal, and setting his mind to it. And it pays dividends for him. Yeah, he doesn't go up against Yusa in this, but Yusa's his big rival, so I'm sure that he'll run into him when it actually comes time for going to nationals, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we had to talk about that.
Guys, it's time to take a deep dive into Boruto 2 Blue Vortex.
The name's still so stupid. It's just so dumb.
Chapter 2. Tree! Chapter 2, Tree. You mean Chapter 3? No, Chapter 2, Tree. All right, so...
This chapter will not be as bad as...
Not as bad.
Previous Boruto chapters. Not because it's good, but because so much of it is action and we could just kind of zoom through that. There's a lot less, stupid dialogue to have to dissect.
Not only is it all action, a lot of it is all just the same action. Because an unintended consequence, Kishimoto, of having Code control an army of putties is that they're very uninteresting, bland opponents that don't talk and all have the same power set. So what's the point of there being a billion of them? Boruto shows up. He's protecting Sarada from Code, and Code says "Oh, I should have come here sooner." And Boruto says the same thing that he's going to say throughout the entire rest of the chapter. I'm not going to cover it each time, which is, "You should withdraw, and I'll let you live." The Code says, "You can't beat me, though. I kicked your ass 2 years ago." And no one ever gets stronger in shonen manga over the course of a time skip. Yeah, so it'll just happen again.
My man does not know that he's in a shonen manga. Boruto is really upset because he, later on reveals that he knows what the Ten Tails is capable of. I presume from his father, there's also a theory that he time traveled back and is actually visible as a fucking ant in a shot of Naruto at some point. So I don't know to play stock in that, but he knows what the Ten Tails is capable of. He won't just kind of say it, though. He just keeps trying to big dog
him. Just keeps alluding to it. Yeah. You don't know what the Ten Tails is capable of. Why don't you say what that is? Why won't you actually... Boruto, when you engage someone in a debate, you're supposed to present evidence that enforces your argument.
Here's the thing. I hold back a little bit that, why would he say it to Code? Code also seems to know what they do. Maybe not to the same extent, but he notes later on, he's like, their end game is my end game. I'm fine with what they're going to do. But to everybody else, as we later find out, this is essentially a zombie fucking fight. You can't let these things bite you. He doesn't kind of warn anybody. I guess maybe he doesn't know the specifics of what the claw grimes do. But it does feel like information should be shared here to some extent.
Anyway, the only bit of dialogue that doesn't include, "You should give up or I'll kill you. You don't know what the Ten Tails are capable of." And that's it. Is when he says to Sarada, without turning to look at her, because Boruto's a good friend, says "Oh, there's some people who need help.
You're weaker than me. Go help everybody else."
You're weaker than me.
He doesn't say that.
I assume you're weaker than me. You have 2 X chromosomes, so I assume that you're weaker than me because this is Naruto.
I don't want to frame it exactly, but it is kind of just Sarada, you're less important than me in this fight. Go help everybody else.
Is that my jacket? Why are you wearing my jacket?
Kind of. This comes up so much. How fucking annoying. I didn't care last week or last month as much, but it is so fucking infuriating to see this stupid jacket every time Sarada does something, because it always has to hang off one shoulder, and it just looks dumb every time. It creates this asymmetry that the eye is drawn to, and then you just recognize why don't you get a coat that fits? Like, why wouldn't you just get a coat that doesn't fucking do all this shit? Like, this just seems like it'd be really inconvenient to constantly have it hanging off your shoulder like that.
You know, if it's like really important to you that you wear Boruto's jacket, you can get that tailored.
She put her fucking sigil on the back. She modified it already. Yeah.
No. We can't. Look, it's important that I put the Uchiha symbol on it. It's not important that I have it fit me.
Yeah.
Me, a ninja who needs to have clothing that won't flap around me. Fighting happens. It's just a bunch of fighting happens with the Inashika Cho team and these claw grime things. One of them takes out the animal that Inojin and Himawari are flying on top of, and it looks like one of them's gonna bite Himawari until Kawaki flies in and kicks it. And Himawari calls out to him and says, "Big bro," and he says, "How many times do I have to tell you not to call me that?" Which I guess is supposed to be because, like, he knows that he's not her brother. But
yeah.
I mean,
it could be out of guilt.
Well, and also, but you can like call someone that without them literally being your whatever. So they say, "Oh, this one's probably stronger than the others," and it attacks Kawaki and goes, "Oh, it's silky."
This one's different as well. It's got wrinkles on its face.
Yes. It's aged, I guess. So, so he blasts it with stuff and blow.
You're not wrong. He does just hold up his hand and kind of do a thing.
But more claw grimes come out because they can use each other as portals and stuff. And they're like, "Oh my god, there's so many of them." And Kawaki's like, "We're gonna kill them all." And then Code and Boruto talk some more after Boruto does a "Hua, I can do cool sword stuff now. Hua ta ta, ta ta ta, cutting through stuff. You're going to lose." Sarada is like, "I'm going to use the same techniques that I used before the flashback to show how much stronger I've gotten by doing the same thing I did before."
It's this panel, the fucking Shitori, where I was like, God, get a different jacket. This looks like it makes this so much more.
It's very important that I be able to have free range of movement on my arms.
It's just so dumb. Also, this Chidori looks like shit. I'm glad I've read stuff where Chidori's like shown off normally. Because if I hadn't, I would have been like, yeah, like her hand glows and then like all the little guys around them get zapped. Like they just like, bzz, bzz, ow.
Oh, that was moderately painful. Some random ninja guy says, "Are you really just a get-in?" And Sarada says, "What does it matter what my rank is?" Anyway, one of the claw grimes comes out.
I think that's where we're all supposed to snap, Nick. Yeah. Like it's like a big cool moment.
A random claw grime comes out of another one and goes to bite her, and a random ninja guy goes, "Ah, behind you!"
No!
And
Sogi!
Right, his name's Soegi, I guess. So he gets bit, and turns into a tree.
Oh, Nick, it makes sense now why this series is called Two Blue Vortex.
Yes. As he dies, he says, "Oh no! Look out for the two blue vortexes!"
The two blue vortexes are real! I left everything I owned in my two blue vortexes!
Oh my god.
Saga sucks.
The sound that the claw grimes make whenever they're killed is two blue vortex.
One's head just gets cut up by Boruto. It's like two blue vortex.
Sarada has the most nonplussed reaction to people turning into trees around her. Is that a tree? And then she sees more people turning into trees, and she just says, "What the heck is happening?" This is my shocked face.
There's a lot of concern going on.
Code says, "I do know what the Ten Tails is capable of," and Boruto's like, "I'm gonna kill you unless you leave," and he's like, "No." He says, "Well, I guess there's no cure for idiocy." And then he starts to unleash a Rasengan, and Code's like, what a one-trick pony. And then Boruto steps forward and says, Rasengan Uzuhiko. And the Rasengan, it's not gathered in his hand, it's swirling around him. What? So that's the chapter.
As I said, this is not as bad as many other Boruto chapters because I think we finished recapping in like 10 minutes or something like that. So that's a big win in my book. It's not particularly good. Surprisingly, it's less of the dialogue this time and more entirely on the art. The art just isn't good for capturing action. It doesn't capture people's expressions well. It's just not good.
Yeah, there needs to be more speed lines.
Yeah. How do I know if characters are going fast or not, Nick? That's, you know what they should have done when Rip was doing surgery and all those people had speed lines. That way I know he's doing it really fast.
Like I say, there's not enough speed lines. There are many, many panels that have speed lines in the background for no reason. Oh, God.
Yeah, not good. Let's talk about Chainsaw Man.
Yes, let's do that. It's Chainsaw Man, chapter 143. So, this chapter's titled Rar.
Rare.
So, the Sword Man and his compatriots from the Chainsaw Man Church are getting set to start causing problems, as is the plan of the Chainsaw Man Church. And the guy who is not the Sword Devil's guy says, listen up, children. We're going to make the humans scream as loudly as possible as we kill them. So we're going to target women and children because they scream better. All right, so I don't like you. You seem a little bit mean.
You might be a tad bit unhinged.
The girl with the sunglasses says, wait, did you just call me a child? I'm going to be 82 this year. Show me some respect. And the sword man's like, wait, you're an old hag? And she's like, no, I'm no old hag. Far from it. I'm eternally young and tough as nails. I'll never die. Footnote on that. I'm a superior human specimen. I believe I was chosen by God. And the weird guy with the glasses is like, yeah, I guess this makes us our imminent murder spree a message from God. These guys are just out in the open talking out loud. Anyone could hear them and start running away.
Yeah, it's a lot of like people you have to assume would just be like, what are these three doing?
It's almost 5 o'clock, which means it's almost time for them to start killing people.
It's almost happy hour somewhere, Nick, right?
That's right. And he's like, all right, operation begins at 5 on the dot. And they're just all looking at the clock. A random kid falls down in front of the sword devil guy. And he looks kind of uncomfortable down at him as the kid starts to cry. He's like, yeah, message from God. Right. Message from God. I'm a weapon. And I'm just going to loan out my body for this mission. Yep. And all three of them start going into their like weapon devil release poses. Which we don't really get to see completed because as the clock hits 5 and as the girl is shouting, it's showtime, her head is in the air because a devil hunter has come in and cut through all of their bodies.
Here's that devil hunter, Nick.
It looks like Chuan-Chi.
It is.
I wasn't 100% certain, but there's only so many light-haired female characters with eye patches that it could be. So,
or I should say, at least it appears to be.
Right. So that happens. The Sword Devil is actually able to finish pulling his hand off, which like unsheathes a blade, which is how I guess he does it's his equivalent of revving up. So he's able to do his transformation. The others, not so much. So he turns into the Sword Devil, turns to her, says, "Why you?" And then she just cuts his head and arms off.
Fair.
And yeah, heads lying everywhere on the ground. The kid who had fallen looks up at her, and so she looks back at him, goes, "Rar," and he runs away. Well, this truly was a Chainsaw Man.
Yeah. Now the chapter title makes sense. Yeah. She didn't say XD at the end of it, though. She didn't put the little, like, rar.
Yeah, no. She's probably a different generation for that. Well, of course she is, because this takes place in the 90s, so.
Mm-hmm. They haven't quite gotten to boxy level humor yet.
Right. So she gets on a comm and says, like, yeah, got them. We see a cop who says target suppression's confirmed, and that he is outside the Chainsaw Man church. News report. This just in. Multiple gunmen opened fire inside a department store today. The shooters were Chainsaw Man church followers. The death toll is unconfirmed. The police and the National Devil Extermination Public Safety Commission, say that 5 times fast, have announced their plans to take swift action in response to the emerging possibility of Chainsaw Man church terrorist activities. Wow, you guys really fucked this up. Like, the first time you were actually going to do something bad, you just completely botched it.
Yeah. They're definitely, like, they're lying, which is, interesting. So I assume they're trying to draw somebody out.
Yes. But, I mean, they were going to start causing shit, and they were immediately stopped.
They were going to, yeah.
So, inside the Chainsaw Man church, I don't know who this guy is or if we've met him before, but he is an older-looking guy.
Oh, you don't remember Old Man Antonio?
No, I don't remember Old Man Antonio, no.
Yeah, I don't either. He doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
That's
all right.
That's someone different. That's Frankie. That's old Frankie Two Bones. Named that way because he only actually has 2 bones in his body. The rest of him is just cartilage, like a fish.
Just a very arduous task, just walking from place to place.
He doesn't get out much. His life is hell.
So, yeah, he says, oh, they're going to search the building. And if they find the weapons in the basement, we could be charged with treason. And both the nervous kid who gave Denji his tour and the president of the Devil Hunters Club say, wait, what? There's weapons in the basement? No one told us about this. The older guy says, we'll gather all combat-trained followers outside the prayer room. And he says, explain what's happening. And he says, I don't know a thing. Never heard a word about it. And neither did you, right, founder? You're in a cult, kid.
Yeah, you might not have realized it until this point, but yeah, you're unfortunately being taken advantage of.
So things are falling very, very quickly all of a sudden, as they are wont to do in Chainsaw Man, where we get, a fair amount of buildup and then just everything falls apart immediately without warning. Mm-hmm. So where do things go next? I don't fucking know. That's how it goes with Chainsaw Man. Things are going to be very drastically different, I bet, about 5 chapters from now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different wild chapter. Obviously, a lot of the hype behind it is Gwanji returning, which everyone's like, oh, wow, I love her so much. I think it's interesting to note her eye patch has changed. She's also wearing like a collar with like kind of frills on it. One interpretation I've seen is that those are like worn in mourning, like kind of with like lace that you can kind of sometimes see in like funeral attire garb.
Because her wives are gone.
Yeah, she lost all of her scissoring buddies. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious to see what this amounts to. It just definitely didn't feel like this is just a cameo or something like that. We were like, hey, it looks like the weapons are alive. Thus, Gwanji is alive. Like, okay, what are the ramifications of that?
Yeah, she's, as they say, put over very strong, too, considering she butchers 3 weapons devils without using her devil powers at all. Just carves them up with swords. So, good shit. Hey, it's more action stuff. It's a Kaiju number 8 chapter. Chapter number 93. Hoshino is fighting Kaiju number 11. And he says to number 10, all right, it's going to adapt to our abilities immediately. Yeah. So we got to do this in one go. But he is at full release. He is at 100% unleashed potential. He and number 10 are fully in sync with each other. He's as strong as he's ever been. And so he says, all right, read my thoughts, because I'm going to tell you the plan. And so number 10 listens in and goes, it's a pretty fun idea. Yeah, let's do it.
I love this energy of like, oh shit, that's fucking wild. Let's do it.
But Hoshino says, like, if we screw this up, we're going to die, so let's have some fun. They square off. They are in their weapon drawing poses to do a single draw. Hoshino takes off, charges in, starts to draw his sword, and he says, all right, first, we're going to create a split-second opening to shatter the core. He slashes. A huge gash opens up in Kaiju number 11. He darts around behind it, and he thinks to himself, to pull that off, to expose his core, we need to hit it with a move he did never anticipate. So he has cut through with his sword and then immediately disposes of the sword, goes to 2 pods, pulls out dual blades instead. Not only that, the tail, the stumpy tail that protected him before of Kaiju number 11 also grabs a blade.
He's fucking Zoro now, this 3-sword motherfucker.
Starts going in a number 11, slashes into an arm, slashes off a leg, cuts off its arms, go huge multi-fold slash attack, and he declares 8-fold slasher and carves up a huge X in its chest. And we get a flashback to the internal conversation between he and number 11, and number 11 says, oh, I'm pretty sure even that, though, won't be enough to take it down. And, but Hoshino's like, yes, but it's necessary to expose the core. We'll need an even greater element of surprise, a greater unknown factor. This will seal the deal. Number 7, it's a new technique he's never even fucking used before. This weird whirlwind that he uses by swiping the tail on his back around. And he basically suggests in this flashback, this has never been anything more than an armchair theory. But if I've got you, number 10, if I'm in full release mode, I can make it happen. A super high-speed 12-hit focused assault on one area. And he stabs and slashes with all 3 of his blades in this big 2-page spread. You see this pattern of all the slashes with a number of the slash following after each of them. And a huge onslaught exposes the core right in the chest. And then he goes in for the finishing blow, darts in for the 12th slash of the 12-layered strike. And Kaiju number 11 lifts up its tail and blocks the killing blow, just like number 10 blocked the killing blow before. So his blade carves into the tail, but it stops well short of where the core is. And just as his support team is going, no, even after all that, he still can't finish it. Hoshino says, Kaiju, I win. In the end, it looks like being a go-between is just in my nature. And we pan back and see he cut off the tail of his suit, and it's flying down through the air, still holding the blade, and Kaiju number 10's eye is peeking out of it to guide the blade home. And that is where we end things as the blade goes through the back of Kaiju number 11's neck, piercing its core for the killing blow.
It's pretty metal.
Fucking awesome.
It is a very metal way to end it. I should note, it is Kaiju number 12 that they're fighting. No, that's okay. Really, the numbers are rather arbitrary.
They're all going to be dead at the end of this anyway.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Kaiju number 16 in a couple weeks. But this is such a fucking awesome fight. And this is like a really satisfying conclusion because it is surprising. I did not pick up where this was going. And when it was blocked, I was like, oh, what do they do from here? And it's like, oh, all according to Keikaku. And then the swing around sword is such a cool move. Yeah, I like this a lot. This was a really satisfying fight. This seems to be the end of it. This is really, really cool.
Yeah. I got very, very excited during this fight. Had a really good time, and it was just a very satisfying single chapter. In addition to being a cool climax to the fight, just you thought it was just a very properly paced. Oh, you thought that was the plan. Oh, you thought that was the plan. It follows up quickly enough with itself that it's not too many fake outs.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good. Had a lot of fun. Nick,
Speaking of having a lot of fun
Yeah.
and really, really good.
Yeah, let's talk about Eden Zero, chapter 256 from Eternity Long Past. Let's talk real quick about the cover page, which is a sister in a police uniform posing sexily as there is a monumental car crash behind her. I can only assume the idea behind this shot is that it's a photo shoot, but in my mind, this is an actual thing happening. And one of the, like a paramedic's like, "Officer, button up your shirt and help. People are dying in there."
There's a camera over there.
I don't know why I'm very tickled by that. So they made it into the new cosmos. They're just like, "Oh, when are we gonna reach Mother? You know, what's going on? Hey, what do we think this cosmos is even called?" And they're like, "Hey, why don't we just go to a random planet and just do some recon?" And they find a planet and they're like, "Wow, that planet's huge. It's also absolutely uninhabitable. Its temperature is negative 220 degrees Celsius." So they're like, "All right, probably isn't life there." And Homura's even like, "Can we even be sure there are humans in this cosmos?" And they're like, "Well, we're just going to keep going. Everybody proceed with caution." Cut over to Pino, who has finished hearing a little message, and she's just very...
hold on. Oh. So I'm kind of bothered by this.
Okay.
Excuse me. So we are told that the radius of this planet is approximately 50,000 kilometers. And Hermit says, that's huge. No planet could ever be that big in the Sakura cosmos. The radius of Jupiter is 70,000 kilometers. So, okay.
We've already established Hiro doesn't know space science. He can't do that math.
Hundreds of people could have died in that space battle, Quinn.
She has 1 million followers in the entire galaxy, Nick. That's humongous. So yeah, Pino is looking very sad. Shiki and Rebecca show up and they're like, "Hey, what's going on? You look kind of sad." She's like, "I'm a little frazzled." And Shiki's like, "Hey, does this mean you looked at the video?" And Rebecca quickly adds, like, "It's okay. If you watched it, you don't have to tell us what's on there, but if you ever do want to talk about it, we are here." And Pino just, like, short circuits. Like, her eyes shoot out and she just clonks over. So, we cut over to a collage of different scenes. First up is Herman. First up, we vomit. We go over to Herman and Wise, and Herman is looking up at him.
Oh, this is the scene that made you vomit.
Yeah. Herman's just like, "Wow, Fujiu is really quite something. They only saw Arsenal for a couple seconds, and they already knew how to make it better. So, like, expect a Weiss upgrade." We got a justification for why his suit will do new things. And he's, right. Weiss is really nervous. He's like, "Hey, whoa, why are you touching me there?" And she, like, gets a little grin. She's like, "Oh, what is this? A human is actually shy about having an android touch him?" And Weiss kind of, like, lowers his Iron Man helmet. And he has an expression. I don't know what the emotion you're supposed to feel here is. I don't know if it's pride.
I have love in my heart for you.
Yeah, I don't know if he's nervous. This is that hero face where you're just like, I don't know what this is. But he just says, "It's not about being a human or an android. It's because it's you." And Hermit starts fucking blushing. She's like, "Oh, what are you talking about? You're so cute." Fucking runs away or whatever. And Weiss is just like, who knows? Then we move to the scene that annoys you, which is Homura walks up to Valkyrie and is like, "Hey, what do you want to talk to me about?" And Valkyrie's like, "I was dead in the last world, right?" And Homura's like, "Yes, the sorrow was overwhelming." And Valkyrie's just like, "But if that's the answer, like, sometimes people die. Like, sometimes you have to let history be the way it is. Should I really even be alive in this world?"
Why does she think this?
I have no idea. This entire conversation comes out of nowhere because these two characters, despite being, like, super emotionally connected to each other, had just not really interacted in, like, the 7 months that this fucking series has been, like, in the new time jump. It's wild, but I don't know. Here we are.
I could understand if there was like something wrong with the timeline that they're in, where it's like, oh my god, this is crazy. Whenever people die, they turn into flesh-eating zombies or something like that. Or like, oh, it feels like everything is wrong. Like all these things that we saw before, people are having worse lives than they did before. Like, no, that's not the case.
Yeah,
everyone's way better. Evil people are all good now.
There is like the idea, like, oh, is this like a morality tale about like trying to change what you can't control, something like that? No, this isn't Pet Cemetery or something like that.
This isn't Flashpoint or whatever.
Yeah, Valkyrie is just spontaneously like, maybe I should be dead. Maybe that'd be better for everybody. Like. And Valkyrie's, of course, like, absolutely. How could you say that? Absolutely not. Don't you understand what we all went through for this? Like, we grieved so much. And Valkyrie says, the time will always come to say goodbye for humans and androids alike. I am only alive because this world made it so. And Amora, again, is like, what are you talking about? Like, I've seen so many fucking people die, but in this world, they're alive. This is a good world we're in. Why are you being like this? If you're really this frustrated, then give this world a reason for keeping you alive, basically. And she starts crying, and she's like, make this world one that'll not make me cry. And Valkyrie, like, flicks her in the head, and it's like, that's a tall order coming from a crybaby like you. Nick, never in Homora's entire existence has crybaby been like an established character trait of hers. This is simply something created for this moment.
We would have known if she were a crybaby because she would have talked out loud about being a crybaby and being embarrassed by it. Like,
yeah, it's a very strange scene. I understand why we're getting it right now, because we're about to move into something involving all of the shining stars, but this is an incredibly stupid moment. Because
that means Witch is going to get a scene, right?
So we cut over to the scene that I've skipped through mostly because Sister is doing BDSM stuff with Moskoy. And she's just like, come to think of it, the Eden's one was in the Yukino cosmos when we left. Do you think it's still wandering around there trying to find the Mother Ether? And Moskoy tries to say something, but he has a ball gag in, so she removes it. And then he talks, he's like, I just hope she hasn't attacked Planet Milts. And I was like, I forgot this motherfucker could talk. I forgot he could say words that weren't just Moskoy or like, I want to be a slave over and over again.
Just spits out the ball gag. Verily, sister, mine opinion is...
It really felt like that, like, because he looks so stupid all the time, but then it's her just like, I just hope that the civilians of that good nation haven't suffered for our actions being in there.
For lo, if we have failed them.
Yeah, he's ready to give a fucking Captain Picard speech over here. He's just like,
oh, excuse me, can you just kind of like tug on my underwear? It's kind of riding up there. And though I may be,
if you could just push the anal plug a little bit, it's kind of in there a little. There we go. Forsooth! Forsooth and comfort! So, the scene just ends because Shiki runs in with Pino and is like, sister, you have to help Pino. She just kind of collapsed all of a sudden. So they set her down and they're ready to focus on her, and we start going into a flashback. Nick, 20,000 years ago, and it looks like we're in New York City.
Yes.
We see Witch, who in this life is a lawyer, I believe they established. And she's walking, she grabs a little car, and she asks Yuna how the competition was. To be clear, I will not be using what their real names are in this universe. I already have enough challenges remembering the 4 shining stars. Just note that if it says something different on the page, I am just going to refer to them as the shining star name they get later. So Valkyrie, as we see, is a surfer, and she's like, it's a total bust. Maybe I'm getting too old for this. Oh, you're on your way to see Ivory. And Sister or Witch is like, yeah, absolutely. And we see Sister, and she's in a hospital room, and she's very sick. And they're like, yeah, I hope she gets well soon. She's looking out the window, all forlorn. And then we cut over to Hermit, and she's running up the stairs, and she's in a schoolgirl outfit. So she's just like a schoolgirl in this universe. She's like, oh, the planet is screaming. There isn't much time left. And we end there, because, I guess we're going to be in the middle of a Shining Stars flashback.
So presumably this follows up on the images that we saw when they encountered the dark stars, and it was established
It better
that connected to them in the past life. So several things. One, there's the point that I named earlier, like, oh, so we're gonna get a scene of Witch before we go into this. No,
Nick. Why would we need a scene? Every character trait about her that we needed to establish has happened. She's mommy. She's the shield of Eden. She shoot out the lasers, and she's mommy. Nick, I don't know what else we need.
So
I just named you 7 traits.
So it's we're establishing, like, okay, here's what they were in their past lives. And for a couple of them, it's like, okay, Sister was sickly, so she's a healer in this universe. Okay, sure. Witch was a lawyer, so she is a defender in this universe. Okay. Hermit was, I don't know, schoolgirl. And being a surfer, swordsman.
They're kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum if you think about it.
But mostly my problem with this is just the very weird set of scenes that we have that lead into this, where we establish like what's going on with each of them. And look, we've harped on the pairing of Hermit and Weiss for a while now, because it's weird because she looks like she's 12, and even though she's not, and that's just kind of a thing where it's like, oh, but she's thousands of years old. Who cares?
Except she almost kind of is, because this time flashback shows her at what age she was there, and she definitely looks like an elementary school student. So if we find out that like something happened that made them all robots from that time, it is definitely a way creepier relationship.
Right, like her development was frozen there. But anyway, so, but that being said, at least it was like, okay, here is a scene where like something personally important with her is happening. Witch and Homura, that scene is stupid, because as we went over, like, it's using character traits that had never been established before for a character who's been around since the beginning of the series. And also, just a really weirdly timed conversation to have. That seems like something that they should have like had when like Valkyrie first showed up. Yeah. Like maybe she would have had doubts about joining the crew because she like sensed that like something was wrong, and maybe this wasn't the way things were supposed to be. Like maybe she would be going against destiny by doing it. But no, it's like things have been fine while she's been traveling with the crew and having no unique contributions to the cast at all since she joined up. And then
they've
fucking
been
Sisters thing.
They've been spanking their way through every cosmos they've went into. Like, she should be like, dude, we rule. This universe rocks.
And then there's Sister, who is just doing stupid BDSM stuff. Like, can you do anything else with her?
No, Nick.
Come on.
She's positing the important questions, like, where's the Eden one in all of this? Hold on, let me remove your ball gag so you can have a conversation. It's like, oh my God. This is just an intensely annoying series of scenes, like for different levels. As I said, I just don't vibe at all with Weiss and Hermit. I think that's just a stupid relationship. There's nothing there, but most hero relationships at this point are just like two characters he thinks look cute together, and there isn't really much between them that actually feels like they would be fun as a couple. The Valkyrie scene, yeah, you kind of nailed it. Like, it just doesn't make sense that it's happening now. Maybe there's supposed to be like an angle here that like the 4 shining stars have to die. Like this is like a second chance for them, but ultimately they're all going to pass. And all these scenes are meant to be seen now with like a different tragic light to it. But it just like doesn't come across well. It just comes across like Valkyrie spontaneously being like, yeah, I shouldn't be alive in this universe. This is all weird. And And then then there's just a sister scene, and then nothing for Witch, just eternally nothing for Witch. It's dumb. Let's talk about Cipher Academy, Nick. That song's dumb.
Right. So it's chapter 40 of Cipher Academy. Whoever decodes it should do it. And last time Iroha had imparted to Ensa that he knew that there was someone he needed to convince to join up with his team. And so she says, let me guess who it is. And she starts like naming some of the like background people in their class that haven't really gotten a focus thus far. So just like, there's still that girl who's got her weird mask, or could it be our imaginary classmate?
This motherfucker is going to be so... This character is going to be an antagonist later on in the series. I can already feel it. Like, they're just going to be talking to, like, a chair with no one in it, and they're going to be like, isn't that right, Wasangora Susa Sama, whatever the character's name is. I'm going to have to sit there and be like, there's an actual person in that chair or presence. This is an actual thing that's happening. I've just accepted it.
So she keeps on guessing people, and eventually Iroha's just like, it's you. And she's surprised by this, and he says, like, look, if our class could go, then I want us to go together, and if one person has to stay behind, then I will. 9 members are going to be chosen for this mysterious cyber brain battle. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds silly. But he says, regardless of who the remaining 5 end up being, no matter who ends up being one of the 9, I won't have any regrets. And if I have to go with only one other person, I want that person to be you. Aw, it's very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course...
I like that we haven't forgotten her, because it did feel like this was a character that got kind of forgotten once Iroha started climbing the ranks. It's like, oh yeah, that girl was like his first friend.
So she kind of just goes off to think about this, and she winds up on that stage that they were on when they had their match with Class 1E. And so, she thinks to herself, like, Iroha's just overestimating me. I don't have a sad past like Nutaba. I'm not in a complicated situation like Yugata. I'm not a schemer like Anonymity. I don't have any nobility like Yosai Mura. I'm not charming like Botayama, allegedly. I feel like we haven't really got to know that character. But she says she remembers when she's like explained why she was there, like that she was only there because she sympathized with the Academy's principles. And she says, that's not a lie, but that's all I've got. There's not some experience unique to me that could push me to the next stage. And at that moment, the head of Class E shows up. I keep on forgetting her name because she kind of keeps on going away before I can memorize it. Hat Girl shows up, and they start talking. Well, Ensa like is sitting on the stage while Kubinashi circles around her and says, yeah, you've got 9 glasses weapons, way more than we've got. So maybe you're like having a harder time choosing because you actually got more options available to you. But did you know this? Class A was utilized for the glasses weapons proof of concept, and there was one person aside from the Toshisai and Nohime factions who Dr. Kogoe didn't approach. And that's you. And, well, Ensa's like, well, yeah, but that's just proves my point. I'm the biggest weakling in our class. And so Kubinashi says, in that case, it's clear why Irohazaka decided to invite you. He wants to take along a screw-up on purpose. He wants a meat shield, someone who take the hits for him. Through the grade-wide leader battles, he probably learned that creating the ultimate team can lead to a lack of balance. And it was also proven that nothing but continuous wins leads to isolation. So having an idiot who holds the group back actually helps everyone come together. And so whirls on her, gets in her face, her hair falls away from her eyes, and she says, Irohazaka would never think like that.
Hell yeah. She's sticking up for her friend, Nick.
Yeah. So Kubanashi backs off, literally is like, mea culpa, holds her hands up and says, all right, so you're just going to have to prove that then. Prove you're not the biggest weakling in your class in the digital Cipher Academy. Stop saying digital. Like, I know that you're going into digital stuff, but you have to understand, you sound silly, guys. You need to stop naming the things that you're doing. So Ensa says, like, I know what this is. This is some kind of fated grudge. I'll just have an endless amount of experiences from here on out with Iro. And so she turns and she leaves. We find out that Yuka was also watching stuff from the shadows. And not a lot's really said, but yeah.
Well, she is basically just like, it's rare to, like, you weren't trying to actually hurt her. You were trying to encourage her. And
she was like, using reverse psychology.
Yeah. So everybody in the school is kind of nice when you get down to it.
We see that Iroha is meeting with a member of Class 1D, Methane Gas Mangata Suzume.
I'm just gonna always remember her name's Methane Gas. I feel like that's really easy.
The puzzle that she has is the 137,790th bullet, and that's it. Okay. She says, like, Invalide Tsunaki Guisu made a big deal about how our names are similar. She's like, yes, you also have ridiculous names. But Nathan Gas says, you said you knew someone who has an even more similar name. Can you tell me it? And he says, Invicious Yunaki Guisu.
Invicious. Come on, my guy. This is so wild.
And it turns out that Invicious was the leader of Iroha's cheerleading club in middle school.
It's like, you're like cheerleader, and you're like, Becky, Jessica, Invicious. Like, I don't know why it's so funny to me that there's a character and they let the cheerleading team and their name was Invicious.
Oh my god. So Methane Gas says to Iroha, if you have anything that you want to ask her as the little sister, she'll talk to you there. So why don't you go and see her? It gives him the puzzle that has the bullet on it. He says, like, we're kind of like busy preparing for summer break. And she says, I mean, every class is, but I'm not the messenger because I'm drowning in free time. So he thinks it over while looking at the puzzle. And Ensa says from off panel, hey, you should go. I'll keep working on choosing members in the meantime. And Iroha turns to look at her, and she's cut her hair and rolled her sleeves up. And I am not okay with this.
I had no idea this was supposed to be the first time I read it, because I kind of like I was kind of skimming it a little bit, and I was like, wait, is this Invicious? Like, did we introduce her to like reveal that she's here or something like that? And it took me a little bit before I was like, oh, it's N. Okay, I get it now.
I'm not cool with this. Like, don't stop making characters with distinct appearances look like everyone else. Don't do this.
I have to see her in more panels in this because they literally don't have another shot of her in this chapter. But this, I need, if nothing else, she needs to keep the extraordinarily long sleeves. I need that. I will not know who she is otherwise.
So Ensa has agreed to join the team now. So she says we need 4 more people now to recruit. Iroha's left thinking about that as he walks off. He's still looking over the clue that Methane Gas has given him. He says, if she had said no, I would have been disappointed for the rest of my life. They're so sweet. They're such good friends.
Disappointed for the rest of my life. That's how I react to most things that happen with me and my friendships. I'm like, I wonder if they want to go see a movie. If they say no, I'm going to have been disappointed for the rest of my life.
He does also briefly think about Namasu, one of the girls that Ensa thought they should look into because they don't really know anything about her yet. But as he's thinking about that, he bumps into Iteshite, the bear.
Kwoka Iteshite?
Kwoka Iteshite. And so Hiro's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ateshite Sani," and she says, "Yes, Koka Ateshite, the one in the costume."
It should be clear, costume is not in quotes. She is trying to be upfront that it is a costume, but we, I think, all agree they're like, costume.
Nah, it's a bear. It's a bear, guys.
A bear just got into this academy. It's the best thing.
So she presents Iroha with a code as well, which says "Do niche sports."
Do niche sports, Nick.
All right. So she says, if you wish to know more about the battlefield dancer, you're invited to come here. But Iroha says, I mean, I do want to know more, but I kind of got like a previous engagement. But Ateshite turns to leave and says, in that case, you should prioritize your current engagement if you think you're still able to acquire this confidential information at a later date. Someone else's life or the current state of someone you're indebted to. Choose the information you wish to know.
Oh.
And we close on a split panel of the two different class leaders who have set up meetings with Iroha, waiting for him in different locations. And Invalide Tsunaki Guisu is waiting on the endless staircase from Mario 64.
Yeah, she is on a fucking gigantic staircase. You know, but now that we've learned about Invicious, I feel like that's what we gotta go with. We gotta learn more about them, right?
Their name's Invicious, we got to.
Yeah. This is a cool chapter. I do like the motivation for N to be like, I want to prove myself. I don't like you speaking down to Iroha. I'm gonna prove to you that he's not taking me along because I'm a fuck up. You know, I'm gonna prove myself there. The jury is still out on her important haircut, TM. But I do think it's cool that she is getting some spotlight because this was like a significant character to start. And, I like the no person left behind mentality of this series.
Yeah. Still think that she shouldn't have cut her hair.
We all agree.
It's too distinct. Like, come on. So let's move on, though, to our new series in Shonen Jump, Kagurabachi. It's an oddly structured chapter because it's very direct in its timeline. And a lot of times with this kind of setup, things aren't given to us in this manner. So first off, we just get hey, world establishing stuff. Forging of katanas. There is a forging technique called tanren, which is used in making Japanese swords. Tamahagane, steel made from iron sand, is hammered and folded and hammered again, and a lump of steel is turned into a beautiful, strong katana. And we flash forward in our color 2-page spread to someone using a katana to cut through a bunch of yakuza. And then we go back to see a father and son. The son looks to be a teenager throughout this. His name is Chihiro, and the father is Kunishige Rokuhira, who is the most famous swordsmith in the land. And we see them, forging stuff. We see that that Kunishige is very serious whenever he is forging stuff, and then we see a bunch of stuff in their home life and see that when it doesn't come to forging swords, he is a goofy weirdo.
Yeah, it's so funny, Nick. He's just a silly little guy.
He randomly gets goldfish. Just randomly gets some goldfish.
Just a silly little guy getting goldfish. Silly little man.
Thinks that he can talk to them. Yep. Chihiro kind of has to take care of them because his dad's too weird around home. Keeps on making weird faces whenever Chihiro points out obvious stuff to him. Hey, you're referring to the goldfish we have as fresh goldfish. It makes it sound like you want to eat them, and he just goes, Arr.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to find this charming or funny. It's a tone though. His dad is a character. He could be a stand-up comedian with this much of a dad for a character. Let me tell you about my dad.
Oh! Ow!
It's a big deal.
They have this family friend named Mr. Shiba who just kind of like
Just
shows up.
fucking shows up. Like I was like, is there like an introduction to this character? And I'm like, hey, he just shows up sometimes.
Yep, he apparently has an arm measuring contest with Chihiro because Chihiro's, he's a growing boy, and she was like, "I'm still bigger than you." I mean, yeah, you're a full-on adult. Yep, that's true. While having a conversation with Chihiro, he says, like, your dad years ago, he was actually more famous than the soldiers on the front lines because of the swords that he made. The fact that he made such incredible swords actually helped to end the war. So don't forget that. Your dad's a hero. He saved a lot of people. And Chihiro's like, yeah, I've heard that hundreds of times. Kind of tired of hearing it, it seems. Get some more stuff between Chihiro and his dad. His dad makes more goofy expressions. And then he has a conversation with them when they go into, like a little dojo that they've got in the house. And he says, yeah, I've got a few of these swords stored in the basement. Most of the katana I made before you were born. Katana have always saved lives and slashed open new eras. But I'm sure you know, they're still tools for killing people. We are complicit in the deaths they cause. If they fall into evil hands, they can kill good people. As swordsmiths, we have to always keep that in mind. Katana should be wielded by those dedicated to vanquishing evil and protecting the weak. And that goes for us too. We need to have principles and accountability. Can you carry that burden? And Chihiro's like, I don't know, but I'm committed to taking that on. So whenever whenever Chihiro's dad has some sword stuff to talk about, he gets very serious. Whenever he's not, so a very weird person he is. Also, he cuts through one of those those bundled sword practicing things in a way that I understand you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to go ha with it. That's not how you practice swordplay with it. But you are supposed to do that if you're a swordsmith, because you're testing the blade and its ability to cut through stuff. So if you're a swordsman, you don't do that. If you're a swordsmith, you do.
Now, Nick, he knows what he's talking about. He has a shirt that says, I love katanas on it.
Yes, he does. I mean, look, whenever you go into a job, you've got to wear a t-shirt that says, like, I love accounting. I love...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every day you go to work, you have your I love accounting t-shirt on. And everyone's like, nice shirt, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know what I'm about. Yeah, so they decide to go back to work, and Chihiro's dad says, all that's left is for me to believe in you. And Chihiro thinks, that's my dad. And we get a shot of, his dad from the back as he's, leaving the room. And then Chihiro says, clean up the mess you made. And on a goofy note, this is the last time that we ever saw him alive, or something like that. It's very quickly established that he's almost certainly dead, because there are a lot of references to, the last katana he ever made and that kind of thing going forward. It's never directly stated, he's dead, but it's definitely implied from this point forward. We flash forward to just over 3 years later. Some asshole Yakuza are cutting up people who stood up to them, who were passing out flyers, trying to get people to rise up against the criminals that control their town. And so, a bunch of them take up swords and start fucking killing them. And one of them is beating up one of the guys who was kind of the leader, and and he says, yeah, you guys, this was a peaceful place before you came along. And so the leader of the group, who's got mutton chops, says, do you know who's backing us? He's like, yeah, sorcerer, so what? Let me at that sorcerer. And a dude in a hat, apparently said sorcerer, starts to cast magic and says, I think your bravery is often rooted in ignorance. Have you ever seen sorcery? Look, I made a little tree.
It's a spiky tree.
I didn't even have to bite you to turn this tree on you. Ah.
I have given you the gift of the pain tree.
Ooh. Also, it'll go away soon. Also, I'm setting this thing on fire. Also, goodbye! It's a little bit inconsistent with how he's behaving. Like, are you trying to scare him? Are you gonna kill him? What are you doing? I mean, he leaves.
He does.
Cut onto a train. Chihiro and Mr. Shiba are riding on the train together. Chihiro's got a katana with him, and they, just kind of like talk about stuff. Shiba refers to a scar that Chihiro has on his cheek, and he says, you could get that removed, right? It stands out. Why don't you do something about it? And he says, yeah, every day when I look in the mirror, I see this scar, and I remember that day. So every day I start the morning with fresh hatred. Okay.
All
so they get off the train, go into town. They're kind of like going over like, yeah, the city's ruled by the Yakuza here. And Chihiro says, do you think that the Yakuza are connected to them? And Shiba says, I can't be sure, but it's the only lead that we've got. So what do we do now? Chihiro says, let's go check out the Yakuza, see if they're reasonable men. And then they see that, like, the Yakuza have strung up a whole bunch of dead people that they've killed off of a bridge.
Nick, they used katanas for evil.
Oh, no, he used katanas for that. And so Chihiro gets mad. We cut over to the Yakuza compound where a bunch of guys are hanging out going, ha, 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 ha. Shiba throws a knife, kills one of the dudes. Chihiro gets between a bunch of them, and we just start getting fucking slicey dicey action. Things ramp up, get very bloody very quickly. Chihiro bursts into the compound, cuts down a guy, cuts off some more guy's arms.
Yeah, a battle for honor, or without honor, humanity starts playing.
Very much that. So, the mutton chops dude is like, what do you want? And Shiba, for no real reason, is like sitting on one of the guards outside, and he says, hey, that kid's the son of Kunishige Rokuhira. You've heard of him, right? The master swordsmith, famous for his special technique nobody else can do. And Chihiro, meanwhile, is inside, and he says, I can't allow slime like you to wield katana. So a bunch of them rush towards him. Chihiro goes to draw his blade, and as he does so, we get the continuation of Shiba's explanation of the specialty that Kunishige did. The katana he made were enchanted blades with special powers. And Chihiro, as he draws his sword, declares Enten, and spectral giant forms of the goldfish that were in the bowl in his past are summoned from it as he starts to mow down people, and he just swings the sword once and just bisects like everyone in the warehouse. Blood flying everywhere, cutting through bodies. And yeah, all the Yakuza are dead. That kid's still alive, the one that they took prisoner, but he is for sure traumatized now.
Well, Nick, did the tree go away? They said it would go away in time.
Yep, it's gone. Hey, it went away with time. It's cool.
Oh, wow. That sorcerer was true to his word. What a good guy.
Yeah, it seems cool. Chihiro has left just the mutton chops guy alive, and he says, tell us what you know about the Hishaku. He's like, what are you talking about? The group of sorcerers backing you. I'm sure if you want to play dumb, that's fine. I'm sure your men are already waiting for you in hell. And Mutton Chops says, oh, the Hishaku, those guys are monsters. You want to pick a fight with monsters like that? You're insane. And Chihiro says, do I seem sane to you? Oh!
Yeah, he's like, damn, you roasted me good, man. Shit, are you Wendy's? Because I just got roasted.
I feel like talking about this chapter has lowered my opinion of it drastically. Before we started talking about this, I actually thought that this was pretty good. I don't know if I'm into the plot of this at all, but once we get into the actual action scene, it's like crisp. You can tell what's going on very easily. It's eye-catching and very unashamedly gory. So it's at least executed well. I do think the visuals as well, for a lot of just like the drawing of the katana when the fish come out, is cool. This is very straightforward, just revenge katana film stuff thus far. But it is serviceable, and if it's going to generate a bunch of good action scenes, then it's enough, I think.
Yeah. I think there's a meme going around on it right now that's like, giving it kind of like the Morbius treatment. Like everyone's like, Kagurabachi is #1 forever. It's old, so it's outsold everything. I don't know if I have. I mean, the Morbius joke was that Morbius sucked ass, so I don't know
it was terrible.
If going into it in that regard is the same way. There's certainly worse chapter ones out there. I will say that for a very large part of reading this chapter, though, I was like, oh, this is going to be the series I forget about. Like, there's a couple series throughout each year that, like, just don't leave any impact. The premise isn't particularly interesting. The characters just don't have anything that stands out. And, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, you look at it and you're like, what was Naru? Like, what was, Aliens Area? Like, what were these things? They just didn't leave much of an impact. And I felt like that's what this is. I still think it probably will end up being that. But I will say the moment when he's like, our swords have sorcery, and here's mine, and he summons the goldfish, I was like, all right, maybe there's something here. Because that moment was cool, and I was able to get behind it. So I'm hoping that maybe it's just going to take me a little bit of time to like figure this series out. But as of right now, I still was not super impressed by it. It's fine. It's very fine. Guardian of the Witch. That's another one, right? What happened in that, Nick?
Which one, sorry?
Guardian of the Witch.
Right. That one's immortalized in me because I just remember that later chapter where he's flying around with the two of them.
I think it was chapter 2.
No, it was late in the series when he starts flying around with them like perfectly horizontal.
Yeah. Now, Nick, let's move from one new series to another.
What are you talking about? There's only one new series.
Well, right? It's not brand new, but it's only chapter 2.
This is the only series that's come out in this latest run of Jump series. I don't know what you're talking
Nick,
about.
I'm ashamed to tell you that is actually factually not true. We, of course, have to talk about Mamma Mia! You! That's the cadence at which you were supposed to refer to this series.
All right, let's talk about Mama Hakusho, and it's chapter number 2. Run, Corleo!
No, you gotta do it with the Italian. Run, Corleo, run! The spaghetti's getting cold.
What you can't see is that the lion in the background has a mane made of spaghetti.
Somewhere out there's one person from Italy. It's like, oh, we do not want to talk like this. Oh, I will never listen to you on the podcast again. I dropped my kazoo in anger.
God. I'm just looking at this first page and I'm angry. We're reintroduced to our two main characters, Corleo and Mamama. Corleo, we are reminded, was resuscitated from near death by the alternate hero, Evan's sigil sorcery. He is 18 years old, height 172 centimeters, hobby, napping, never dated before, all critical information.
Bitches, none.
Demon Lord Mamama took in and raised Corleo 18 years ago when he was 2 months old, age 38, height 146 centimeters, hobby, napping, has dated before.
Oh, they're like best friends. They both love napping.
These are the most boring people on the planet. What are hobbies? Napping and nothing else.
Nick, how can you say that? She's dated before.
Who?
I don't know. Steve from accounting.
No, that's impossible. I would have heard about that.
Damn, I shouldn't have gone for accounting. You're like, that's my territory. I know what's up there.
You know how accounting departments are. They're rumor mills. No one can keep a secret.
Real scuttlebutt going on over in the accounting department.
So Mamama is handing Corleo a piece of paper, and he says, "What's this?" And she says, "You come to that address at 7 tonight, because I gotta tell you something." Why can't she say it now? Corleo asks that, and she says, that attitude is a turnoff for girls. I should know, I've dated before.
Yeah. Not I am one. I have dated before.
So it's been 3 days since the whole thing involving Evan. He was told that he's a hero, but he still doesn't feel like a hero. He is walking down the street, kind of haunted by memories of Evan and being told, like, you're without a doubt a hero. And he's like, oh, is it okay, though, if I think of myself as a hero? Hey, that demon kid that he protected in the first chapter stops him and comes up to him and says, I want to thank you for your help. I'm glad you're the hero. And Corleo, I kid you not, runs away from him.
No, he runs with excitement.
Yeah, and he looks like a dork. Look at the way he's running.
Nick, neither of us have a ground to stand on. We both run like weirdos. I've seen us run.
I don't run like that.
That is true.
Although we are at least told in the narration that he was tripping over himself all the way like a kid running on his birthday, okay. So runs to meet Mama, and is out of breath when he gets there. Our hero, and he has been told to come to the memorial cemetery where heroes lie, and he's specifically brought to the previous hero's grave site. And Mama says, there's 2 things I need to tell you. The act of protecting comes with its fair share of self-sacrifice. I was the demon lord, but weak. If the hero army had really wanted to kill me back then, I'd be long dead. But hello, was an extreme pacifist. A virtuous man who would forgo his own safety to protect others. He traded his life to usher in at the end of the war. And what about you? I see the traces of hello, hidey, howdy, hey, in you. And we get a flashback from Mama's perspective to when hello, hey, nani was talking to her and said, why are you insisting on stopping me? And Mama said, don't make me say it. You're being mean. Oh, did she have a crush on him? Le gasp. And he says, I want the next hero to live a peaceful life. Never again should a life be unjustly taken. If my life can make that happen, then it feels a small price to pay. I'm glad to be the hero. And Mama says in the present, I don't want you to get hurt. So don't go overboard when you're being brave. Run when you should. Be a bitch. Don't.
Yeah.
So Corleo looks at her, thinks about the time that, she was crying with relief when he was brought back to life, and is like, okay. Then he does like kind of the sign of the cross, but not only is it different from the actual sign of the cross, but also he does it wrong. So Mama points that out to him, and he mutters to himself, you crying, she says, shut up! So Corleo says, well, hey, earlier a demon kid thanked me, and I always thought that nothing good ever came from being born the hero, but today was the first time I felt different. I felt glad to be the hero. It's a weird place to have this part. Like, this happened last chapter. Anyway, so he apologizes for saying that he wished that he hadn't been born. And then he goes to walk away, like he tries to get away from all of his weird, awkward conversations. And she says, no, wait, I had 2 things to tell you. The second is the meat of the matter. The other thing is, and everything gets all topsy-turvy, woo, upside down, the eclipse happening, a monster's over there. Turns out Evan said to her, like, yeah, I think that that now that I've given Corleo some of my powers, that there's gonna be, like, abnormalities showing up. Good luck with that, goodbye! A monster attacks, and weird stuff starts happening with eye monsters and stuff. And Mama tells Corleo that he needs to run away. And there's like an image of Corleo being ripped apart, but that doesn't actually happen. Mama tells him to run away. The weird monster thing attacks Mama, rips her arm off, and Corleo goes to punch it and punches it. There's a boom effect.
Yeah,
he punches it, and the thing sees the sigil of the hero on his hand.
So last week, I was a little bit immediately on his phone. Last week I was a little bit more positive on this series than you are. I definitely felt myself brought back down to earth this week as I was like, yeah, this was. I wish there had been something more interesting. I think maybe it's just the fact this series has some like interesting paneling going on. That's really the only thing that I think it has going for it. Um, I guess we have our premise now that like alien or monsters will invade this world, and it's up to Corleo to become a hero. I think there's like a weird level though of like all this feels kind of strange. Like our initial premise is like this is a world without peace. What does a hero mean in that? And then it was like actually no, there are just monsters that are gonna attack. Like it's kind of like an extra middleman step was placed in there because it's like no, because the different multiverses touching or whatever. But yeah, I just didn't really vibe with this chapter nearly as much. Like again, there are still some cool panels. I do think it's innovative with the way it structures itself, but it's just not particularly edgy. Like next chapter is a real make it or break it. Like next chapter has to fucking rule, and I'm not sure I have that same optimism that it will anymore.
Yeah, I have no interest in these people or what they're trying to do. I actually am there with you in terms of like if less were happening in this series, it would somehow be more interesting because taking the tack of, hey, we've got this cycle of war between people and now there is a time of peace. So how do these people find meaning in that? Oh, a new conflict comes along. That's not how you answer that question now. It's putting it on the back burner. And that's annoying to me. But in the meantime, like somehow Corleo is the most boring protagonist in Shonen Jump right now, which is a weighted fucking statement, I feel.
He's got a lot of stiff competition.
And I just am not interested in anything happening right now. Yeah, I will fully read the next chapter. I am still I'm much further along. I was trying to stay open-minded last time, and I feel like my mind is very much shutting itself off to this, and I'm going to try to be fair until we at least get through the first 3 chapters, but I'm not happy.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. I know it does make
Let's
you
talk
happy.
about a quality series.
Yeah, I know it always makes you happy to talk about though, Nick. New Exorcist.
It's chapter 18, Niue and Shiroha. So this is an odd place to begin this chapter, but our friend Suo is answering questions about the barbecue that happened during this training arc. That feels like forever ago, but I know it was like 2 days ago at this point for them. And doesn't really even have anything really going on. Like her superior dismisses her and is like, okay, yeah, go back to your occult club and stuff. And she says, okay. But she thinks to herself, like, how long am I going to have to keep on doing reports on the spirits at North High and everything? Security is all set up there. It doesn't feel like there's any need for me to do this. Of course, she doesn't know all the shit that's going on with Shiroha's family. Speaking of which, she comes across Master Moro, the guy that we met at the end of the last chapter, who is apparently going to have to go and try and kill Shiroha, who is his past student. And we find out that, like, yeah, he's a fucking, like, exorcist. He's got a nice reputation there, and she's familiar with him, and calls him by name and stuff. And he's apparently really nice and humble while he's, out and about here, and she's very friendly with him. And she says oh yeah, your pupil, Mr. Urana's a vice captain now and stuff. And he's like, well, he's not my pupil anymore. But he says, actually, I need to talk to you about something. It's about your school. And we see that he gets some information from her. We don't get exactly what that is, but they say goodbye to each other. And Suo just thinks oh, he always looks so tired. He's probably just asking work-related questions. Wonder what the heck he's working on though that requires someone at his level. So then we cut to the school where, of course, Hoshino and Gakuro are living because Niue is trying to protect her from Shiroha's family. Shiroha wakes up first, looks down, sees that Gakuro is still holding her hand after, she asked him to do that. And All right, I gotta go. Where's my school uniform? Gotta go. So she runs into Nue in the hallway, who says like, "Hey, you going for a walk? You should go in for a bath after you're done. Water's nice and hot." And she says, "Where's my school uniform? It's drying. Go take a bath. Go take a bath.
Take a bath, Shiroha." Like slowly a gun moving into frame. A bath would sound lovely right about now.
Oh, hey, look, Shiroha's going to take a bath.
Yeah. I've heard a great many jokes about this. I think Lost Thief had a great one. He's like, we used to have standards in this country for fan service. We used to hold ourselves to something. This is such a nothing thing, but I'm like, all right, fine. They actually have an active, protracted conversation, so I'm fine with the stupid bath scene.
It's very weird because, yes, that does happen. Before that, we do just get a full-on cheesecake shot because it's just a shot of Shiroha's butt fully naked. And it's weird because I don't know what the last time was that I last saw a cheesecake scene so gratuitous and shameless and yet so unsexy.
I don't know when's the last time Hero did something.
It's anatomical. It's weird.
I'm not going to sit here and really grade too much of the art of it, but yes, this is definitely not something where I was like, oh, the people are going to be going wild for this. I'm like, whatever.
Anyway, Shiroha gets in the bath, takes a soak. Nue is next to her. Who could have seen this coming?
Whoa!
Look, there's someone I wanted to talk with you, Shiroha, and I needed you to go into the bath for me to talk with you about it because there was no way that we were going to have a conversation otherwise. So I'm glad that I in person told you to go in the bath so we could talk about this. But yeah, so Nue says like, you were trying to leave when I saw you. Yes. Yeah. Look. That's not going to work. I've erected a powerful barrier around the building that you can't break. And she says, well, please bring it down. No. You try to make me. No. So Shiroha says, like, look, I'm kind of lost here. I don't want to cause any more trouble to Yajima and to the others. If I stay here, people are going to come after me. There's going to be trouble. If I go home, they'll send a new person to come after you too. So I was going to try and persuade them to stop when I went back. Which, now that I think about it, would probably have been meaningless. So now I'm just lost. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do that won't cause more trouble for you and for Yajima. My family's just going to keep on coming after you. And she said, goes over like they're ruthless. They never give up. I don't believe I can do anything about this. And so Nue's like, yeah, well, thanks for confiding in me. You're a kind person, Shiroha. And don't worry. Keikaku! All according to Keikaku. We're good. It's because she says, I want to make Gakuro the strongest. For that to happen, I need to make his enemies be stronger and stronger. I don't know if we can trust her all of a sudden. But, Shiro brings up, like, they're going to send people he won't survive against, though. And she says, no, I'll be with him when that happens. And anyway, we got to talk about how you have, like, no sense of self-worth. You've got a death wish and you don't seem to care about yourself. And she starts groping her cheek. Just pulls her cheek.
Wow, that's a first for a bath scene. She's
restraint.
Yeah.
But she also brings up, like, look, if you tried to give yourself up to your family, first off, how do you know they wouldn't kill you? And second off, Gakuro would come after you. And Shiroha still says, like, look, I'm not worth the trouble. You've got to, if he ever tries to come after me, when you get himself into danger, you have to stop him. And Nue says, no. If that happens, I'm not going to stop Gakuro. She asks her why, and she says, it's because I'm happy to have met you. I'm glad that we got to, eat sukiyaki together yesterday. It was really fun. Being able to play video games, the fact that you're friends with Gakuro, and the fact that you're able to confide in me, that all makes me happy. And it gives me reason to want to protect you. And in that moment, Shiroha thinks about the elder of her family saying that if she can't fulfill her duty, then her existence is meaningless, contrasting with this moment where Nue gives her a big booble naked hug. And says,
again, props.
Restraint.
Doesn't focus on that. Like, you know, you could have really like gone horny with this, and it's just like, no. Sometimes people are nude in a bath. Get over it.
Yep. And she says, the fact that you're here makes me really, really happy. That's why I won't let you go back ever. Which, if her life literally weren't in danger, would also be very creepy. It's like, I'll never let you leave. She then they they get dressed, and Shiroha is told like, oh, you know, why don't you relax while we make breakfast? And Shiroha's like, hey, can I help with something? And she offers to make rolled omelet. They're like, oh, okay. And then we get into like the really bad part of the chapter because like Gakuro wakes up, Shiroha's opening up the curtains, and she says breakfast is ready to go to eat. And oh hey, the food that she made is there for everyone. And she has a moment just to think very briefly. Yeah, these peaceful days can't continue like this. Yeah, they can't. The barriers.
The barrier shattered. We just established, Nick, shattered.
As her master has arrived. And Nue doesn't seem worried about this because she's like, oh, the barrier's been broken. And that's so, oh no, Hajime's going to have to fight someone. You know, yeah. So that's it.
So there's a couple things. One thing I will say, first, I like that this is, again, just continuing on Shiroha, who continues to be kind of the strength of this series and, like, deals with, like, hey, look, you are not unwanted. You need to find purpose for yourself. You are not worthless. You are not, you know, your existence is not defined by all that stuff. I think it's important to continue to establish it. It builds this character more and more. And this is kind of, like, the heart of the series at this point. So when this dude shows up, just immediately breaks the barrier. And it's like, all right, time to kill this kid that I, you know, helped train or whatever. You're like, oh, like there's something here. There's a tension there. Right. Still not good. Like it feels like the caveat you kind of have to throw out a lot of new Exorcist, which is just like the art's not particularly great. The direction isn't great. Nue is still just like this character that's just like so like perfect waifu to the point of it being annoying. Like she has no real flaws. It feels like she's right about everything. She knows everything that's gonna happen. She just has like kind of an obnoxious quality to her. So I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Like there's a lot of characters here as well. Like I guess the little spirit girl will also play a part in this because she's also here. Although it'd be very funny if next chapter she's like, I'm out. Like just jumps out the window and she's gone or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, this was probably overall like the second best chapter of this series thus far, and it rises to the level of okay. In broader picture stuff, the fact that the sense of hope that is had for Shiroha to have some sense of self-worth takes the form of her being a good housewife for a little bit, and that's gonna be concerning if that's the thing that
I'm hoping not. I think it's more to the idea of her just living a normal life. I will say that, I guess, hesitantly because I didn't consider it before, but it is worth, I guess, considering. I don't think that's where we're gonna go with this, but if it ends up being that way, this is awful.
Right. I'm not going to say like, oh no, this is bad, because like honestly, with something that is the level of quality of New Exorcist and the lack of, you know, faith in its quality that I have, I'm not that concerned with it. And anyway, this could just be like, you know, just a thing, an isolated thing. But yeah, if that is like the direction that we pursue, it is going to be kind of upsetting if like the one character that we've had an investment in the relationship with, if that's the way it concludes, it's going to be like, oh fuck. Yeah. All right, but let's move on to Akane-banashi.
Let's do it.
Story 78, A Shallow Man. So I'm just going to do this part straight. Because of the way that it unfolds. We get narration. Sanmei-te, the source from which both Ran Seika and Kunjakute schools arose. Along with Kashiwaya, this school has been one of the most foremost in Edo Rakugo since the Meiji era, boasting 43 apprentices total. This Sanmeite member possesses the highest Myoseki name inheritance in the Sanmeite stable, the 6th Enso Sanmeite. Kareishi says, Stop that. We get the context for this, which is that the school that Kareishi is working with is having an event where they have to go over company history. And so he says, look, we can't do this. It's weird. You don't talk about this stuff. This isn't a manga. You don't have to make it sound dramatic. Wop, wop, wop. It's actually a manga. So, there's a few people from this company that they're working with who says like, okay, well, this is a big day. So, maybe we should discuss this with Master Enso. And Kareishi says, look, my master left me in charge of everything aside from his actual performance. So, and hey, you're just having the Zenza just recite from the company history. And I don't think we should do that. And one of the people from the company says, no, we have to do that. Because while the company president desired Rakugo for the festivities, it's a commemoration of the company's history, a 100-year anniversary of the company. So we should touch on the story of the company. And Kareishi says, like, yeah, okay, but can we cut down the speeches? Because you want the crowd to pay attention. And this is going to cut into my performance time. And the woman that he's talking with says, yeah, we contracted Master Enso to perform Rakugo, not any of his apprentices.
We kind of did this for the main attraction, not the opening act.
Yeah. So Kareishi starts to protest, but he sees that she's just looking like very serious at him. And he says, all right, that's all I have to say. The other guy that they're meeting with says like, okay, yeah, I think we're done. But when they go off, he talks to the other representative of the company. And he says, why did you act like that? Why'd you put your foot down that way? You don't usually talk like that, Minase. And Minase says, yeah, sorry. Truth is, I actually know him. We've known each other since kindergarten. And he would play video games in class, and then somehow in the test results, he was always better than everyone else. And he started doing Rakugo despite not even liking it. And he was a student champion multiple years in a row. And then he just would ace every job interview that he ever took. So we just get this, montage of the two of them growing up and him always basically having it easy while she, kind of like struggles and is always a little bit behind him. So she says like, it's infuriating that he's just good at everything he does. But she also thinks of a conversation that they had in the past where when he was prompted of like, oh, what, go pros or Rakugoka? Nah, that'll never happen. So now she thinks like he just threw his career away on just a whim. He's a shallow man. And the only way for him
Nick,
to be a shallow man.
I get the title now.
Yeah, the only way for Kareishi to stop being a shallow man is if he goes into one of the two blue vortexes.
I was gonna say it's because when they bite the people, they turn into trees. I get it now.
What a weird twist it would be if Akane-banashi turns into a zombie movie all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's wild. That was a shallow man over there, they say, as they point to a tree made of Rakugoka. Now we have to run. They're upon us.
Oh, God. So we see Kareishi preparing for this ceremony to mark the company's history. The other of the two representatives besides Minase goes up to the company president. Is like, oh, it's nearly time. And he's like, oh, yeah, I really want to see some good old Rakugo. Kareishi is getting ready. He's looking at like kind of a book that is about the company's history. And at that moment, Minase comes up to him and is like, are you actually going to examine the book? He's like, shut up. I'm just passing time. There's kind of some awkward, silence between them. And he looks at her and is like, go away. Go away.
Get out of here. And
Minase says like, no, I'm going to watch to make sure you read the thing you're supposed to do. He says, look, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. This is my job. And he takes the stage And he starts talking about it. He says, "Oh, congratulations on 100 years of illustrious history. To commemorate this occasion, I'll read from the story of the company's century of existence." And then he just goes like dramatic reading mode. "It is the 24th year of Meiji, 1891. One man is given life in the town of Shison, Hyogo Prefecture." And Minase is watching from the sidelines and is like, "But what the hell?" But I mean, all the stuff he's reciting is accurate, but why is he reading it like that? What is this? And as he gets more and more into it, everyone's paying rapt attention, and the company president marks on it from nearby Minase and says, "Oh, this is a nice surprise. You see the way he's using his fan, the way he's telling the story, he's using Kodan storytelling. Rakugo is the traditional art of conversation. Kodan is the traditional art of reading, an art form devoted to the telling of military and political exploits. So he's lighting up the atmosphere. He's touching up our history. What a great opening act this is. This is very impressive." And he remarks that, normally for first-year Zenza, he wouldn't be able to do this. So you can, Koreshi gets just a brief, little moment to show his chops.
Good. Yeah. He's got something going for him, that kid. He's going to go places.
So Minase reacts to this and is like, "God, even in Rakugo, he can just do everything well." After he does the opening reading, Koreshi gives back the history book and is like, "Here, I read your book. You have anything to say now?" Just like, and she's like, "Good job." And then as she kind of like flips through the book, she remembers when Koreshi would, like, as they were students, would always make things look so easy. But then, like, one time she borrowed his English text and would see how he would, like, highlight and cross out certain words. And she realizes, in reality, he did actually work hard in order to get where he was. And she sees that he's done the same thing to the history text. He actually did prepare for this. So they're still saying as to her sister, she says, "Hey, why'd you decide to become a Rakugoka?" And he thinks about it for a second, and he thinks about seeing the performances before and seeing Akane, and he thinks to himself, and he says to her, "Because it ain't easy." Cool line. Could have ended the chapter there, but we're not.
Yeah, go a little bit longer.
Master Enso shows up right over his shoulder like a slasher villain. Is like, "Yes, you're stating the obvious like it's profound. There you go again." And he's just goes down on him and is, "Oh, you satisfied at having done your little play pretend version of Godon, you little ant?" And Koreshi says, "Shut up." And so says, "Sanmeitei is the supreme example of Edo Rakugo. You are forbidden from being outdone in Rakugo, little ant." And Karashi's like, "Yeah, like I let that happen." And meanwhile, behind his back, his phone is going off. He's got a message from Asagao, who I'm not sure if we've met before.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Asago is, but Jigemu Girl is definitely...
Jugemu Girl is Akane. Who's just goes, "I got huge news!" And getting some notifications about something coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, this is cool. It's weird. This is just how my dumb brain works. So it's like, Karashi? I wasn't presented with this previously. I'm thrown into the deep end. But like once I got over the fact that I was like, oh yes, we were just abruptly in a Karashi chapter, I was like, this is cool. Like, this is a good chapter. This is good character development. This is a cool, different style of showing that Karashi really cares about this stuff, and I really digged it. Dug it. I can have words.
So it's it looks like there's going to be, just the next competition ahead. And hey, yeah, we had, a brief kind of interlude to kind of check in on our characters. So yeah, it's bad time to get back into the shonen of it all.
All right. Well, Nick, let's wrap up this podcast by talking about One Piece Chapter 1092, Kuma the Tyrant's Holy Land Rampage. But first, I want to talk about the cover page, which is Jinbei, and he's swimming. He's being like smooshed by a bunch of like giant cuddly remores. But I love Jinbei's expression, which is like, "Oh, what am I gonna do about all of these remoras?" I don't know. He just has a very adorable expression on his face. He's like, "What do I do about this?"
He is making a face that he doesn't often make.
Yeah, it's very, very cute. So we open in sort of like part of a flashback. This is something that happened previously. This is the previous day, but we don't get the full black border because this is also like kind of concurrently happening with everything that's going on with Egg Island or Egghead. So previously, Kuma had sort of like been activated and was like climbing the red line and was just like on a mission. They couldn't stop him. He's made it to the top. He's made it to Marijoa. He's just charging through. And they're like, we're trying to stop this guy. We can't. He is unstoppable. He is hell-bent on reaching his destination, whatever it is. And he activates his Ursha Shock, sends everybody flying. And it's just him and Akainu, who's like, you have to answer for this historic destruction, Kuma. He also laments, he's like, fuck, god damn it. First the revolutionaries, now this. Like, this sucks. Before we get to that point, that we cut over to, or I should say we cut over, but what is his name? Saint Charles Missigard, I think is his name, or something like that. Saint Charles. One of the Celestial Dragons, the super jerk one, is just like, these soldiers are worthless. Akino, I'll have you know, last night I ordered a lobster and they had the gall to tell me they were out. This has never happened before. What has become of Marijoa's food supply? It's worth noting that is an interesting detail. Like, it sounds like things are kind of not going great for Marijoa. I don't know if it's meant to be an exaggeration, because he moves very quickly on to like, also you should kill that man.
I've been injured.
But this did feel like a detail, like, ooh, keep this in mind, because this is going to be relevant later. Agino's like, listen, Kuma, if we can't control you, you have to die. I don't really know what's going on from you. I've been told that you gave up your free will a long time ago, and if you're no different than a dead man, then where do you think you're going? And he fires off an attack. He shoots like his fire fist move, basically. Kuma dodges it mostly, but it does still burn part of his head. And Kuma, Akinu notes like, at least you bleed like a man. Kuma just starts running away, and he does like teleport poof himself away, but not before Akinu burns off one of his legs. We can see like a shot of his foot just getting singed off. I guess I shouldn't say singed off. It could, I don't know. Characters in One Piece sometimes have weird reactions to things that seem like they should kill them or whatever. That is true. People are noting that the revolutionaries did attack the food supplies.
Kuma's fine. He's got 5 feet. You just can't see them.
He's like a spider. In that moment, though, we then flash back a little bit to way back when. This is pre-time skip, Nick, of when Blackbeard had captured Bonnie and had her chained up, and then left because Akainu showed up. And we never really knew how that scene ended. We still don't exactly know how it ended.
What happened after Blackbeard left Bonnie chained up? Well, she was still chained up later.
Someone talked to her, and then I don't know. So yeah, Akainu is like, yeah, bark all you want, but Kuma's mind's not going to return. He volunteered to be turned into this weapon, and Bonnie is crying, screaming, basically like, liar. He would never do that. He would never leave me behind. And that's the thought that Akainu is kind of left with, where it's just like, where would you go, Kuma? A mere puppet with no mind or will left. Cut over to Egghead. Back in the New World, the pacifistas are destroying the sea beast, just zapping them down. And then we cut up where Luffy is fighting with Kizaru. They're having a big fight. It looks like Luffy's in snake band form because he's doing like all of his like punches. And Kizaru's complimenting. He's like, this is very powerful. However, I have to ask, what what brings a pirate like you to step in and protect a man like Vegapunk? And I love Luffy's answer. He's like, that's what I want to know. Who would want to kill the Apple Man? Why are you trying to kill Apple Man? Kizaru says, I don't want to. And then sort of like shoots far off into the sky. Very far. Like so far, Egghead Island is kind of like clearly very far in the distance. He's still talking, I assume at this point, to himself, unless we're just supposed to be under the impression that Luffy can hear that far off. But he's just like, I don't want to kill him. I've known Vegapunk for a very, very long time. So I'd appreciate you staying out of this. And he uses this distance to gain an immense amount of acceleration and kicks Luffy and just sends him flying. Luffy shoots, smacks straight through the Vega Force 1 and just bisects it, just clips it right in half as he's going flying and just gets knocked kind of straight off the island. We get a little flashback of Vegapunk proudly telling Kizaru about completing the Vega Force 1, a giant robot, the dream of mankind. Everybody,
or at least the boys in One Piece.
Yeah. Everybody falls out of the Vegapunk, and Lilith is like, we have to get out of here. This is going to explode. And it immediately does. It's like a car that turned over in a Grand Theft Auto and starts smoking. You're like, I'm going to get out of this now. Everyone's like, no, the robot of our dreams. And they're like, well, shit, Straw Hat got knocked straight away. Kizaru confronts Bonnie, and he's like, "Aw, look how big you are, Bonnie. Kids grow up so fast. By the way, don't you hate Vegapunk for what he did? Well, there's an assassination order on his head. We could be allies." And she says, "Nope. My wrath has a new target. Situations change." She tries to use her age skewer on him. I don't know if picking up just a random ass cable was the best idea. I guess she had to work with what she had. It seems like kind of an unstiff weapon to do it with. But Kizaru just kind of notes, he's like, I'd rather not hurt my acquaintances. So he kicks Bonnie in the back of the head, sends her flying, and then shoots a laser beam at her to blow her up. This feels like when you do D&D and you roll your attack, you're like, that's the damage. You're like, okay, lethal or non-lethal? And you're like, non-lethal. And then you describe you're like, I non-lethally fireballed them, basically. I assume she's fine, but I do like Davey. It's like, I don't really want to hurt you. Thousand Sunny had been knocked, kind of onto the ground because the robot carrying it is gone.
Dropped it. Yeah.
Frankie is really pissed. He activates his radical beat, and I was so excited because I really, really wanted to see Kizaru's reaction to him having a laser, but Kizaru just leaves. Yeah. He's like, I'm done with this. Ain't no one stopping me now.
I can move at the speed of light, and my goal is not here. There's no reason for me to be here.
Yeah. Kizaru, we cut over, I should say, inside at the control tower. The Vegapunks are all cheering, we figured out the code. We can get out of here. This is great. And then Kizaru is just like, so, hey, I'm here now, and I also blew up your giant robot. So, and it's very terrifying because, a lot of the stronger people aren't here. I forget where Jinbei and Sanji are, but, Luffy's completely gone, and Zoro just went out the window with Lucci. So it is, it is a very terrifying moment of, oh, my God, the Marine Admiral is here. Kizaru's just like, oh, please understand, this is very difficult for me to do, and I'd rather not draw it out. But before we can do anything, we hear those drums, Nick, those drums of liberation, and that laugh as Luffy has gone Gear 5, and he's all big, and he just grabs Kizaru, and he says, whew, that was a bit spicy. I do love Kizaru.
MamaYuyu, that's the spicy meatball.
That's spicy. He should do that. This would feel very cartoonish. Kizaru is just like, there it is. This is that thing that you do. And Luffy just laughs. He's like, thanks for knocking me all the way down there, you jerk. I almost thought I'd die going through the barrier choice. So a very tough time for Luffy to have to navigate the laser barrier choice. But
he is covered in singe marks,
Yeah. We end the chapter going back down into sort of that basement underground area of Egghead Island where we saw the giant robot that seemed to exist from like the Void Century, and it was deactivated, but now its eyes have lit up, presumably because Joy Boy is here, Nick.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is happening, but honestly, I'm more just like into the implications of like, oh, Kizaru's fast.
Yeah.
Just this is a very different kind of opponent for Luffy to have to deal with. Someone who not only moves very quickly in combat, but can just go wherever he wants semi-instantaneously. So it's an interesting obstacle to have to confront. And you really do feel like, yeah, he does just have to be Gear 5 in order to take this guy on, because you just have to have an equally unfair power set for this to work.
This is an extremely strong opponent, and you kind of have to go all out, or else he's just going to mess you up because he's extraordinarily quick.
And that's all I have to say about that. What did you think about manga this week? What were your favorite chapter and character?
So I think manga was really good this week. I think there were a lot of very, very strong chapters. A lot of stuff that I just like thinking about, enjoyed quite a lot. But I think the answer to this, like, favorite series is going to be Kaiju number 8. I think this was a very satisfying conclusion to that fight, which has already been something that I've enjoyed as it is. But this was like, this was nailing the finish. This was, perfecting the dismount kind of moment where I'm like, damn, this was really cool. I like that a lot.
Yep, I'm going to echo that sentiment completely. I thought that this was a really, really satisfying conclusion, small question mark, to this fight, and it was just really fun to see the entire sequence play out, contained in this one chapter. Like, okay, here's the plan. No, that wasn't actually it. That wasn't actually it. This was it. All in one very well flowing sequence.
And my character of the week is going to be Rip. I think we talked about it quite a lot during the chapter, but Rip came off as extremely cool. I loved the little speech he gave to the little girl. I love his passion. Honestly, I think he wins it just for being like, hey, if there is a God and he's giving sick kids cancer and problems they have to beat in the hospital like this, I'm going to fucking kill him because that's a fucking shitty God. I was like, hell yeah, that's a sentiment I strongly get behind.
Yeah, I'm going to, again, echo you. And I've got really nothing to add to that. You hit on all the points that I was going to make. Yeah, Rip was very cool in this chapter.
Hell yeah. The audience, by the way, agreed with us on Kaiju number 8 as their series of the week, and I get it. They're Sims. Quan Chi for the from Chainsaw Man as their character.
Okay, guys.
Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, when you open a chapter in Shonen Jump with a scissoring party, I mean, you get a lot of fans on your side. That's all.
Fans for life.
you get some dedication.
It's like, yeah, Rip, you're cool. You vowed to murder God for messing with all those children. But have you ever had a lesbian orgy? No.
How many girlfriends do you have? Is it 4? He's like, well, kind of 2.
It's kind of 2.
It's not 4. That's what we're at. That's what we were getting at.
Do you have sex with both of them at the same time? I mean, they're sisters. That'd be kind of weird. Boys.
A coward. He wouldn't last a minute in Chainsaw Man world.
Does one of them constantly shout Halloween? No.
Pathetic.
Yeah, guys, that is going to do it. Thank you for listening to Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show here live on Wednesdays, usually at around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow us on social media, however that shakes out in terms of the constant changing realm that is. But also join the WMR Discord. It'll be linked wherever this podcast is posted. You can have conversations with our community as chapters come out, talk about the series that we're covering for the recap, and all sorts of other fun stuff. And also you can find a link to the Google Doc, which keeps track of all sorts of statistics associated with the show. Post questions for us to answer in a future Q&A episode. See the past series that we've done as recommendations, make recommendations of your own for stuff you'd like to see us cover in the future, and all that good stuff. Ninja X3I maintains the Google Doc, and we would not keep track of any of that stuff without that contribution, so thank you. Also want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/weekly manga recap, where you can get bonus content that we like to provide for you on a semi-regular basis. And we also want to thank Milejack Stillitz, it was Cheddar, for creating the opening sequence of the video version of Weekly Manga Recap, which you can check out on youtube.com/weekly manga recap. Also, occasional title cards done by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out under Steve Man Art, wherever moves can be drawn on the internet. And the audio version of the podcast is on iTunes, it's on Spotify, and all the episodes are posted on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Hooray!
Yeah, well, guys, stay tuned for next week, where we're going to be getting a little sadistic, I assume. It's Sadistic September, and we need to talk about everybody's favorite Yabuki series.
And what's that, Quinn?
To love her, Nick. But not darkness. Not darkness. I'm really hanging my hat on it. Not darkness.
No, if we were going to do that, I'm going to have to cash in another one of these.
Damn. That's it, everybody.
Goodbye, all.